Je suis le point de lumière au cœur de tous les axes. Je suis la fronde devant les schismes. Je défends l'essentielle unité de toute chose. Je prends sur moi la bataille d'unifier dans mon champ tous les contraires et les rendre résolus à l'évolution des mondes. Impossible n'est pas français. Je suis l'unité future dans le présent. Je suis la révolte de l'âme et la puissance de l'amour. Je suis la force du roc et la béatitude des forêts. Je suis le chant de l'abîme et la radiance du soleil. Je ne crains rien et je permets tout. Je suis offerte à l'évolution. Je suis l'évolution par l'union des contraires. Je suis la France et je me bats pour l'amour de la totalité de la création. I am the point of light at the heart of all axes. I am the sling in front of the schisms. I defend the essential unity of all things. I take on the battle to unify in my field up all opposites and return them resolved to the evolution of the worlds. Impossible is not French. I am the future unity in the present. I am the revolt of the soul and the power of love. I am the force of the rock and the beatitude of forests. I am the song of the abyss and the radiance of the sun. I fear nothing and allow everything to be. I am offered to evolution. I am evolution by the union of the opposites. I am France, and I fight for the love of the whole of creation. What would be cultural revolution, reinvention, if it would be inspired, if it will be an expression of the soul DNA of our nation? This text came after 3 months of working on that question with a small group in a place that is Villars but was not yet Saint-Claude. It was a land in the valley with Morgane called the Forêt d'Ambrosia. It was hanging in the forest of the Iron Mask in l'île Sainte-Marguerite. It was just feeling into the tremendous potential and life force of this country, of this nation, when it is not about some kind of persona of the roster or what we can picture about France. I think everywhere in the world such a reinvention is possible. Such a revolution is indeed needed. We just spoke with John about the dissolution of competition. One of the key elements to me of the reinvention of culture is to let go of the narratives, for example, of Michael Porter, who expressed to us that nations would be competitive to one another, and that will be the key for economical success of the whole planet, which will be the key for the blossoming of humanity. And we know in which kind of state this has led us. Where the soul of a country is alive, expressed, then it is naturally in symbiosis with other soul of nations expressions. The soul of Finland is in natural symbiosis and complementarity with the soul of France. The soul of America and the soul of France have demonstrated such a tremendous history of revolution, inspiration, direction, liberty. There is no competitive advantage in the language of nations. It is an invention of our last century, and we can sadly see where it has led us. Cultural reinvention to me is about unveiling all the unnecessary layers that are between us here and now and the core expression of the life of the earth through a specific color that is exactly the prism that the bedrock of our nation is. The life of the earth through the mental and through the bedrock, and then the forest and the elemental colors as the color, as a note, as a sound, as a smell, as a taste. And this is our blood. not only the blood of this body, but also the blood of this soul, the blood of this arborescent tree of life that the earth is. To return to this expression, because I feel we are all indigenous of our nation, there is a huge simplification, and which is good, because we often say that nature is what remains when all has been forgotten. So which means we can basically forget everything and learn everything, like Rutendo said, and there will still be culture. The soul of France is longing for unity. Unity in diversity, but the merger of forces that are offering themselves to evolution. And I think it is fed up with people claiming power, with apparently a will for the common good, but they're basically advocating their own flag. And we have seen that so sadly in the last couple of decades in France, where all supposedly progressive forces have been saying, yeah, I'm here for something greater than me, but they were still defending their own beefsteak, and they were all defeated by forces of resistance to revolution, basically. So I think France is longing for evolution that will come from surrendering the will to achieve as an individual for the will to achieve as the one humanity. And I think it is willing to pretty intense sacrifices to bridge what seems unbridgeable, to reconciliate what seems completely torn apart, to speak up about what is unfair, of what is a huge grief, whether the whole world is liking it or not. I think the soul of France is also longing for beauty, the beauty of human hearts taking on the staff and walking forward for evolution, with no separation between the sky and the earth, the left and the right, the good or the so-called evil, the resistance or the evolution. It wishes to merge all of this as one and bring it resolved as beauty and as evolution. And to recognize the sparkle of truth in every seemingly opposite, and try to, even if it may be by being completely torn apart and dissolved, but being a bridge for the encounter of all opposites to finally remember themselves as one. I think that's also peculiarly of its position energetically and geologically. We have in France those last rocks of the Pangea close to Lyon, and we have also like what we saw here, you know, this kind of the various crosses of the various ley lines that would cross in Bourges, which is said to be the keystone of the great work by Fulcanelli, the great alchemist. France is not that much a land of philosophers, even if it has been the cradle of many beautiful philosophies. I feel it's a cradle for magicians. I feel it's a cradle for artists, for bards, for poets, for Rimbaud, for Merlin and Saint-Germain, and all the beings that are transmuters of the planetary heavy metals into gold. There is nothing that cannot be transmuted on this planet. There is nothing that life cannot transmute on this planet. And to transmute, we have to take a lever, right? That is Archimedes telling us that we need to take a lever. So to re-initiate, to reset, to reinvent culture, we need a lever. And this lever, of course, is not something that belongs only to humanity. It is something that would take us into remembering ourselves as the universe having a human experience, as Deepak Chopra would say. This, I think, is the level of unzooming that paradoxically can finally unblock such a tiny bit of the universe, but where matter is so dense that the resistance is so dense also. And so, one aspect or one pillar of the reinvention of culture would be, can we become cosmocentric, solar centric, geocentric, and human centric at the same time? Could we be at the core of our souls with many doors leading to many identification and accept that there is sacredness in each and to not surrender to uniquely one, but to accept the immense fires of trying to be a place for at-one-ment of all these vectors of will and life and power? Because at time, of course, we will be just dismantled. How can I be truthful and loyal to this arrow of life that is, for example, demanding me to offer myself to life and evolution, and be truthful for the sacredness of the personal and this anchoring in the land or anchoring in the tenderness of my child? It seems impossible to at one. It is just because we have not yet found the evolutionary keys. And these evolutionary keys, I think, are treasures hidden deep in the rocks, in the forest of every country in the world. We have this beautiful culture that birthed as a merger of the Bonpo tradition in Tibet and the imported Indian Buddhism of Siddhartha Gautama that Padmasambhava Yeshe Tsogyal took into Tibet. And out of this was born a culture of tertons, the beings that were treasure revealers, treasures that would have been hidden by some great sages or avatars somewhere in a cave, in a lake, in a secret monastery, and that will be revealed when time is ripe. And this reminds me of this beautiful happening like only 1 or 2 decades ago, when all of a sudden on places of markets in the Andes, in Bolivia, in Chile, in Peru, near Cusco, all of a sudden there were people speaking ancient Inca. And they were there. Who are you? We are the ancients. We have been withdrawing and hiding in the mountains for a couple of centuries while there was all this dismantling of our culture. And we have kept the secret keys with us. And now we feel time is ripe to come back and hold those keys. It's the prophecy of the white calf in North America. How this tremendous master woman that came and handed those keys to the Dakota, Lakota, Sioux Nation and said she would return when time is ripe. And not so long ago, like a few days ago, a white calf was born, and our looking horse was celebrating and is celebrating the solstice and World Peace of Prayer Day today. It is also the culture that is bathing all of the Mediterranean, which is the culture of this Judeo-Christiano Islamism that is actually the one tradition of the book that was so beautifully expressed in Patmos by some guy called John, who called it the Revelation, in Greek, Apocalypse, which we have, with our fear of change, made similar to some kind of doom and the coming of sorrow on the earth, whereas it is just eventually maybe just basically the experience from the inside out, like Jonathan was saying this morning, of remembering ourselves as the universal life, having a human experience in this humanity, in this period of time, on this globe of earth. Maybe that's the so simple and so deep revelation that is somehow we're having the sparkles like the ancient druids. They were able to listen to this, just like the rishis reinvented culture 6,000 years ago in the Upanishads, and they were just wandering in the Himalayan forest, but they had their soul had ears to take down a few sparkles of inspiration to create a new mythology, to create a new culture that was the seed of a spiritual culture that will later calcify as a civilization, yes, but nonetheless we are just now on the brink of understanding their magic and what they grabbed from the universe itself. The central spiritual sun, the Mahaprana, the Gotra, the seed of life at the core of every atom. We just have Nassim Haramein beginning to demonstrate that in 2023 or 24 with The Origin of Mass, his latest article. It took us almost 7,000 years to understand their poetry. The distance between a revelation founding a civilization and the externalization and vulgarization in the good, positive sense of the word that makes this revelation a sharing, a shared realization. So, like also a Tree of Life and Terence Malick beautifully portrayed it, when the first dinosaur in his mind eventually hesitated to just kill another animal he was fighting, and compassion was birthed into his birthing heart center, then it was time to move on. Then something can come out eventually and we could go towards what was next. Mammals, humans. In the Fifth Element, Luc Besson said like time is not important, only life is important. And in Little Buddha, Bertolucci also with Don Rinpoche, we have this beautiful symbol of, Lama Dorje just having a cup of tea and talking with polite, that's not polite, Chris Isaac, and I was just saying, of course you don't believe in reincarnation. Why would you? Good tea, right? And he crushes the cup, and all the tea fall, and he takes that into tissue and say, it is the same tea, whether in a cup, in my belly, in this tissue, on the floor. It is the same tea. What is important is not the tissue or the vase or whatever. It is the tea itself. It is the life principle itself, endlessly evolving from one universe to another, from one planet to another, from one human being to another, from, if we believe in this, one incarnation to another. So I feel our nations are offered to this evolution, and we tend to calcify their culture into flags, into history, into whatever, anthems and so forth. And fortunately enough, we have those peculiar moments. And then transition is birthed out of the will to, can we do our part, like the colibri in the reinvention of culture? It is something that is happening everywhere, whether people know about it in the transition or not, of course. It is something that is basically permitted, enabled, allowed by the gathering of forces. What was France longing for? In 1927, just 2 years after 1925, and we have this 25 like a pulse of the life itself, of the Earth's life itself. And then in Solvay, so a French-Belgium guy, he gathered all the Nobel Prizes, Ehrenfest, Pierre and Marie Curie, Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, so many. And basically those guys, they reinvented culture because they opened a window to the infinite, and this infinite was quantum physics. And now we can have Greg Braden, and now we can have Nassim Haramein, and now we can have all that we have. So basically, this is what I would call the law of assembly. The Maoris have that. The Berber have that. The Incas have that. The former civilization had that. We have that. We have that law functioning. It is functioning here and now between us. We are gathered by something that is beyond us. We are gathered by the one life of the earth to say, are there some of my cells that are willing to dream the future with me? Because I can dream this future, but if I want to manifest it with my imaginal cells, I will need cooperation. I will need a few cells opening and say, I don't know exactly what and where you are, but I'm willing to cooperate. And I'm so much willing to cooperate that I'm okay with forgetting, letting go of any ancient narrative, any clinging, any fear, up to myself, clinging to myself as a separate existence. I'm about to put all this on the table and see if I can be your oracle. This is the story that is leading us to tomorrow. Tomorrow we are all invited into a co-creative assembly. The 19th of June in La Salle du Jeu de Paume in Paris, we had Mirabeau, so many philosophers, so many Lumières, so many people of various backgrounds, from enlightened peasants to Freemasons to people from the church, from every people in the society, wherever, whatever their creed or age or whatever would be, and they would gather together. And what would happen? They would gather to say, we are here, we have the picture here, we are here under the guidance of the Supreme Being. We are here to offer ourselves to evolution. And when the king sent his army, and with all this kind of, it's a kind of gun that ends with a knife, the bayonet. And Mirabeau answered, we are here, nous sommes ici par la volonté du peuple, et nous n'en sortirons que par la force des baïonnettes. We are here by the will of the nation, and we will get out of this only by the force of you passing through us. Then they would say that they are this kind of oracles, this kind of cells of the earth's life, and there would be nothing that could be taken away from them, be it their life. This reminds me of a closely related nation, the nation of Scotland, and the brave heart of William Wallace saying, like, you can take our life, but you will never take our freedom. So we have the freedom to align with the greater will of life, because we are in a cell, in a larger cell, in a larger cell, in a larger cell, and we have the opportunity to dilate and to welcome this oneness with evolution. And more than this, we are giving the possibility to give it shape. Think global, act local. Tomorrow, this period of time in between civilization is also a moment where life is saying, I know the direction. It is your blossoming as life itself, your remembrance as life itself. But you know the path because you are the user of this matrix, of this reality. So you get to shape this reality for the coming age by yourself. Of course I will inspire, but the very details of this shape, in which kind of world you want to live, is up to you. We want to co-create with you. We want to co-create with you, beautiful Mathieu, mon amour. We want to co-create with you, Amandine, tomorrow. We want to co-create with you, children of every nation, creed, spiritual, cultural, tradition, background. Je vous aime. We are here to co-create with our love, and it's up to us to conceive the coming mythology, culture, civilization. It is a tremendous, like said Rutendo and Aubrey, responsibility, a responsibility. We are able to respond to life. We are able to respond to evolution. How are we beginning to respond to life? I will just invite that we have maybe a little drop in into this question. We can Feel into our feet, our base, our heart, our crown, and let us be traversed by a current of life from the greatest structures we know we can think of. I don't know, it could be Laniakea, this immense cluster of galaxies. It could be the sun, it could be whatever you want. And we can plug into a specific place on earth where you feel home. It could be here and now. It could be any kind of your mountains or your river. What makes you this unique pathway for electricity between spirit and matter, between sky and earth? And then when you are this current between plus and minus, wherever plus and minus are, what is the middling principle of love and consciousness? How is it reverberating? What kind of images, glimpses of the future, of the past, what is emerging out of your alignment? Let's take a few minutes to dive into this. Is anyone willing to share his or her download or whatever experience they have had during this time meditation?
What was the question again?
Is anyone willing to share their experience, whatever, if there was any kind of download or whatever, what they experienced during this meditation?
Didn't you ask a question before we got in?
As if we allow ourselves to be that kind of connector between those two gigantic poles of existence of sky and earth, spirit matter, what is passing through this kind of mediating wire that is consciousness or the soul, or our love or wisdom, whatever, what is expressing as consciousness forms for us that can be part of this spiritual or cultural seed for the coming times.
What's come through for me, the more the river of life flows and breaks down the molds, the more that wants to come through is honoring times of activity and times of rest. So breaking away from the pattern of having to be productive from 8 in the morning to 6 at night constantly. So there's more this yin yang throughout the day of I'm active, and then I take time to rest and recharge. I'm active, and then rest and recharge. And this is new, only since maybe a year and a half. What wants to come through more is play. There was a phase of healing. I need to heal stuff, and then after most wounds felt like they had closed up, I was like, I don't want to go heal anymore. I just want to play. I just want to have fun. I want to see what I do in life, a vocation, as play. I want to play with other adults. So the barrier of plays for kids and adults are serious, that broke down, and it was, we're all just playing. No matter what your age, you can be 80 and you're playing. So yeah, more rests, more play, and creation. The previous way of seeing life, the way it was taught to me younger, was I have to dedicate my life force energy to feeding a company. And I did that for 6 years in event planning. I was feeding a big business like the insurance companies, phone companies, and whatnot, which is great too. I use a phone, but energy wanted to come through and create its own thing. So that came out in art and food and music, and breaking away from a company meant giving space for creation. So yeah, rest, create, play.
Thank you. I'm sort of feeling the connection somehow, this alignment here just in this moment, and feeling France and the soul of France, and then somehow being with the vibration of the soul of Finland, and just feeling some sort of interwovenness of all the souls, and then also feeling this particular place in Finland that has been coming up throughout the time we've passed together, and a particular cave there, and somehow feeling the connection of these cave tunnels through the earth, and somehow this very material aspect of being connected somehow through the earth is, in this experience that I was having here, was interwoven with this, just as a somehow arbitrary examples of France and Finland, but that's just the interwovenness of everything, even soul and matter, or spirit and matter. And that's just surging out differently. And then, as I was just sitting here already, eyes open and more present about this physical being and the separate parts of me, had this more humoristic thought of French mosquitoes eating Finnish blood.
No borders for mosquitoes.
And the mix of material again, and somehow always sort of coming back to this that it's just the sacredness of blood, the sacred matter, and that there is no separation.
I chose to focus on line Ikea, and well, then the energy went quite up, but I felt very much actually the alignment between this moment, Earth, Sun, then the center of this galaxy, and then the local cluster, and then the supercluster, and then the line Ikea. That's was beautiful. And then something about this bridging principle between of the soul, between matter and spirit, and how basically it feeds itself to the black hole to unite them somehow, and how it's burned in that process also. Like this, as you offer maybe your personality to open to soul, and then you offer your soul to open to life. Thank you.
There's one more small thing that sometimes comes up again and again, is that me, which is in English I, and in Finnish us, me. And then when you say and then like me is we, and when you say we, it's also yes. and yes to life. and there's something of there's not much rational parts of me, but there's something they come together also to form something new.
In this play of words also we have this really peculiar pronoun, which is on in French. With I'm not a linguist, but I feel it's pretty rare to have something designating a plural being a singular, and I feel it's a really beautiful indication also of the culture of this DNA of this country, which is around always the perfect example. Like, we consider the unity of the group, the essential oneness of a group, because it's a singular. So I feel it's really beautiful, and it's also in English on. So being that singular, we are then on, or even the one, or I can share briefly. Here there's been this sensation of being on a little hill close to the sea, and I'm pretty sure it was the Mediterranean, and there was a cave. And what was completely different was the experience. It was like if a kind of the word soul of a kind of medium has taken the whole of the Earth orbit, and like if our inner worlds, outer worlds were completely interrelated, like just by thinking, the whole of the elements were like responding and feeding back to it. So it was a kind of magic was the norm, and it like completely interwoven inner and outer scapes. And words are really poor to describe that this sensation that this planet is already so magic, but we can live an experience of intimacy and intrication with the life of the earth and the soul of the earth and the anima mundi that's as beyond any kind of glimpses or whatever, and we can live this complete, yeah, intimacy. So that was basically kind of experience, short experience of that, like if that was what a common culture could lead to actually, because any eventually I think in any kind of round, like we said, the rishis, and we end up now with the quantum physics, etc., it leads to a certain point, so to a certain degree in evolution. Eventually, maybe within 7,000-8,000 years ago, this magic of feeling so much more intimate with all this tree and all this anima mundi will be somehow what will have been acquired, what we will eventually go forward from. So yeah, that would be a really good sign.